G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video, and here we go with another FIA Manufacturers Cup combination. We are at Fuji Speedway in Group 3. We enter the lobby here, probably second split. We see some of the names there. A lot of people I know, but notable mention for Nitro down in 9th position. Part of the Discord server I'm in. We've also got Woga Rigany in 12th position. We had that amazing race with him at Kyoto Driving Park in the Mazda Roadster touring cars. A lot of other names we've raced before as well. But we come out for the qualifying session here at Fuji Speedway. We are, of course, driving the McLaren F1. The last race that we used this car for in this series was at Dragon Trail. Absolutely shocking performance from myself here. Maybe this car wasn't quite suited for Dragon Trail, but I think it went a lot better around Fuji. It was up there in terms of pace. So I think we actually finally had a track that the McLaren F1 is good at, which is nice to see. But we come out for the qualifying session behind the Renault RS01 here, car that doesn't get used too often, so shout out to Just the Atom for driving a very rarely used car. It's good to see it out on circuit. This is our out lap, you see, coming in towards turn 10, Dunlop corner. We completely just brake too late, run into the back of said Renault, and we know the penalty system at the moment, 2 seconds of penalties for that there, so that completely ruins our following, or the qualifying lap that would have followed, as that penalty gate is at the start of the start-finish main straight, so that would have ruined our momentum for the first part of our lap there. So we cancel back to the pits, and we start off our lap here. But as we're coming through 100R, you can see we wash very wide as we're very narrow for turn 4. And having a look, there's actually a load of people coming out of the pits. We run deep into the hairpin too, so that lap's kind of ruined. But I thought I would have had a good chance on getting a slipstream for my lap, as there were people exiting the pit lane. So I cancel back to the pits. There is someone exiting, but I don't think we got lucky enough to find a slipstream here, but that's okay. We start our timed lap and finish that one with a 1:37.6. We had enough time to go again. It's going to be a slightly faster lap, so we will run you through a lap of Fuji in Group 3, or in the McLaren at least. Notable thing with the McLaren, you have to brake slightly earlier than you might do in some other Group 3 cars, as its brakes are not up to standard. Looking on the left-hand side, just after the 150 meter board, heading into turn 1, we run slightly deep, probably having a small toe off the Honda ahead of us, but we get through there okay. Turn 2 is this little kink here, running down the straight towards turn 3, Coca-Cola corner. Looking on the right-hand side, braking on the little orange marker on the barrier, it directly in between the 100 and the 50 meter boards, running through 100R now, flat out through turn 4, and then ease off the throttle, down a gear to get some rotation if you feel it's necessary, and braking just on the end of the curb. On the left-hand side for the hairpin, turn 6, runs very quickly into turn 7 on the exit. We're running down towards the straight, down the straight towards the chicane, turn 8 and 9 on the straight, braking just on the gantry, that Dunlop gantry on the right hand side of the circuit. Second gear, cut turn 10 lot, turn 11 nice and tight, and run a straight line up through turn 12. You can cut this quite a bit. Looking on the right hand side, braking just on that light post as it exits off your screen. Second gear for rotation, onto the power, nice and tight through turn 14, braking just on the end of the curb, bring it out wide, back for the late apex of 15, up to the final corner, Panasonic. Looking on the right hand side, just to the end of the barrier, there's an orange paint marker directly on the end, braking in a similar fashion to turn 15, getting through there nicely, hang out wide, meet the apex, nice straight exit onto the straight. We may have a small toe off the back of the Honda heading down the straight, not quite sure though, we are quite far back. But nevertheless, we come across the line with a 1:37.5. It puts us up into 5th position, directly behind Nitro. So that lap there, we messed up turn 1 a little bit. That may very well have been the difference between me being behind and me being ahead of Nitro. But that is that. But as always, with these FIA Manufacturers Cup combinations, let's enjoy the beautiful introduction. Absolutely excellent as always. We see the grid lined up there, a Jaguar on pole followed by an Alfa Romeo 4C and a Porsche in second and third position. Nitro in the Mercedes ahead of us, so the red Mercedes is Nitro, and then myself in fifth position in the blue McLaren F1. You see, rolling start here. We probably could have quite easily gone for a grid start, but it would have caused a little bit of carnage into that very sharp turn one, so I think the rolling start was actually the better choice there. Now, tyre compounds for this race, soft and medium tyres are available. The mandated tyre is the medium, so you have to be on those tyres for some portion of the race. I'll go for a two-stop. We'll talk a bit more about the intricacies of the strategy later as it gets interesting between myself and Nitro, but we'll just follow the action of the opening part of this race here. Coming into turn one, Slipstream and Nitro brake nice and early. I don't want to cause any incidents. I would rather sacrifice and I would rather maintain my position here in fifth rather than try and go for a move and end up binning it going down to the back of the field. So basically, I'd tend not to go for moves at turn one. Coming into turn three now, Nitro a little bit wide off the apex, gets onto the curb there, has a bit of a snap of oversteer right there, just puts him beyond track limits. He gets a half-second penalty for that at the start of the race. That's not what you want there. See how closely packed together the rest of the cars are, the rest of the field is here in this race, so you're going to be dropping quite a lot of positions by a small serving of that penalty there. Penalty gate is, of course, as mentioned previously, at the start of the massive straight here at Fuji, so you're going to be losing your momentum all the way down the straight. A run defensive into the chicane at the end of turn 10, at the end of the straight, as we had a car trying to look around the outside, but we managed to maintain our fifth position here, running up through the very twisty, tight, technical final sector here at Fuji. We just have to try and keep the car under control. McLaren F1 has a lot of power. It's very much a power car, so we are basically trundling through this third sector, or final sector. Actually, it is the third sector, looking up on that map now, just waiting to unleash all of its horsepower down the straight. There's about 600 horsepower, just waiting for this massive 1.4 kilometer long straight in order to drive past some cars. Nitro serves a penalty and drops behind Wogarigani in the Subaru behind, so that just eases off the pressure that I was feeling from having a car very close ahead of me here. Running into turn one, Porsche very deep, tries to cut back, but I make up a lot of ground on the apex there. Ducking into the slipstream of the Porsche, not so great in a straight line, whereas the grunt of this McLaren, look at me just pulling alongside. Porsche backs out, realises he's not going to be able to hang that around the outside of turn three, and I managed to make my way up into third position, in the podium paying position of third. Got our eyes firmly set on the Alfa Romeo. We are clearly quite strong at the start of this race. We've made two positions already, and we just have to focus on the back of the Alfa Romeo, but not focus on his line in case he goes off. I don't want to follow him off at this point in the race. We've also got to be careful of the Subaru behind, but much like the Alfa Romeo ahead, that Subaru is not great in a straight line, so we're going to be fairly okay down the straight. Versus most cars, actually, the McLaren F1 is gonna hold its own quite well. It's one of the fastest cars in the straight line. In Group 3, it's going to be quite strong down that straight. Alfa Romeo 4C is probably one of, if not the most weakest car in a straight line in Group 3, so it's going to be quite clear that we could potentially get a move into turn one. And having a look through the final sector, we've caught up quite a lot of ground to this Alfa Romeo, out onto the straight. We get a nice exit there. Have a look at the time difference between myself and Cazadro in that Alfa Romeo there. It dips below 6/10 as we exit the final corner, so we're going to be in that slipstream firmly, heading up through the gears, down the straight, looking up the inside for a move into turn one. It is going to be a fairly clear-cut move, actually. We just drive straight past him even before we reach the braking zone, so much so I'm able to get back to the racing line before the braking zone. So that just goes to show that Alfa Romeo very poor in a straight line. However, it's going to be much better in the handling sections, and I suppose if it has the toe down the straight, it could also be quite a strong car down the straight as well. Most cars, as long as they have slipstream, can kind of keep their own position. But now we're just going to focus on the time gaps between myself and Norm, and myself and the Alfa Romeo behind. I guess if the Alfa Romeo does go for a move, I'm going to comply with it. Actually, down on the radar there, Wogarigani goes for a move on the Alfa Romeo, heading through the hairpin there, and just displaces him for position. However, the Alfa Romeo has the inside for the run down 300R. Braking just under the gantry, of course, into the very, very slow chicane, very, very slow turn 10. slowest corner on the circuit, I suppose, heading up once again through the final sector. The Alfa Romeo very close behind. That Alfa Romeo is going to be strong through this sector here. You see he catches a lot of ground, heading through turn 13, up through 14, into the braking zone for 15. Look how much ground he catched up then, or caught up then, rather, if I can actually use English words there. Very close behind, going to try and defend. Heading into the final corner, through the final corner, out onto the main straight. Alfa Romeo has a much straighter exit there, but the McLaren, my apologies, has much stronger acceleration, but he's going to have my slipstream. Having a look at the gap between myself and Kazadro behind, actually it's just closing down. It was about 0.2, it's now 1.5, essentially. Heading in towards the braking zone, he could potentially dive for a move, considering that this McLaren's brakes aren't so great. I have to brake earlier than potentially the Alfa Romeo can, and he is quite clearly going to get that move up the inside at turn 1. He runs defensive into turn 3. I decide the Alfa Romeo driver is faster than me at this point. I'm not going to put any more pressure or force any issues between myself and him, as I think 10 times out of 10 he's going to beat me in a direct drag battle, I was going to say drag race, then I ended up realising that I would win a drag race against the Alfa Romeo. It turned into a drag battle, which is not really what I want to talk about, if you know what I'm saying. I guess a direct race on a circuit, this driver is quicker than me, and we find ourselves back down into third position. We've got Wogarigany behind, followed closely by Mega Wang. I'm not quite sure what car Mega Wang is in, but Wogarigany is in a Subaru. So having a look at the radar behind, they're backing up behind me. I am slow through this final sector. I do realise that, thanks to this McLaren being much more a straight line point and squirt vehicle, rather than being a handling technical flowing corner vehicle. Mega Wang dives up the inside of Wogarigany at the final corner there. We probably will have a look behind and see that Mega Wang is driving a Jaguar, much like the pole sitter actually. You can see I'm just driving away from the pair behind, having a look at the gap. Just opened up to 0.7 beyond slipstream range, and climbing as we head towards the braking zone for turn 1. Quite a large skip there. Halfway through lap 7 we are now. We open up the replay angle for Nitro behind as he managed to carve his way through the pack, got ahead of Wogarigany and Mega Wang, who are in 6th and 5th respectively. He's now up in 4th, directly behind me. We're on lap 7, so we can start to talk about some of the strategy. We are going in for our pit stop at the end of this lap here. We'll discuss the strategy after the first pit stop here. As coming through the final sector, oversteer through turn 13, up through turn 14, very, very wide, onto the entry of 15, just clattered the curb, massive kick of oversteer there, so close to binning it, but we finally come through the final corner on this set of tyres. Nitro looking up the inside there, but he's not quite able to get alongside. I whack on the right indicator to tell him I'm going over to the right hand side into the pit lane. He follows suit. So that's 7 laps on the soft tyres, very sketchy by the final sector of that last lap. I absolutely slam into the wall on pit entry as well. We enter the pits there and put on a brand new set of soft tyres. Nitro does the same. So we can talk about strategy now. I knew what Nitro was doing before I actually entered the race, as we were discussing strategy before. He was going to do 7 soft, 2 medium, 7 soft. So a 2-stop race. I decided, we'll see what I decide to do a little bit later, but I knew Nitro was doing that, so we both put on a new set of soft tyres at this point. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not one of us can pull away, or whether not, well, I suppose whether I can pull away, or whether Nitro can overtake and then pull away. That will kind of dictate what I decide to do here, but we're going to leave the replay angle of Nitro up for kind of the duration of this stint, and just monitor the gap between myself and Nitro, as this is kind of the main sort of meat of the race, I suppose. Heading towards the chicane, you can see how much ground Nitro catches up under braking. So that Mercedes is actually a very, very solid car in Group 3. Very good all-rounder, good in a straight line, good handling, good brakes. It's fairly, no real drama on corner exit. A little bit of oversteer if you nail the throttle too much, but as long as you can control it, there's going to be no real issues. It's a very good beginner car. I'm not saying that that's why Nitro is using it, but I'm just saying it's a very easy car to control. And you can see heading through the final corner, actually, we get the power down very well and streak out nearly 7 tenths ahead of Nitro at this point. I tried to break that slipstream a little bit, but Nitro just follows me exactly where I go along the straight, and he's able to pick up the toe heading down the straight as it just dips below 7 tenths again. A load of people went in for the pit stops. We find ourselves in 4th position. There's the Alfa Romeo driven by Cazadro coming out of the pit lane. In 3rd position, we have Oil in My Blood up in 2nd and Norm XC in 1st by a fair margin, actually. So Norm is actually new on the scene. The first time I'd seen him was at that Mazda touring car race at Kyoto Driving Park. That was the first time I'd ever seen the name, and I've seen him in every race since then, and he's doing very, very well for himself, up in the lead by quite a margin on most races he does, or every time I've seen him he's been up the front. So very good from him there. But having a look at the gap behind, it's just opened up to a second heading into the braking zone for the chicane here. Heading through there, it remains just over a second, so Nitro doing a very good job, but I've just managed to streak out a gap. I think that having the soft tyres underneath this McLaren can really sort of carry it through the corners. Alfa Romeo goes for a move up the inside of the Porsche, and that promotes the Alfa Romeo up into 2nd position. It just also brings that Porsche closer to me. I'll get a stronger toe down the straight. However, that Porsche will be in the toe of the Alfa Romeo, so it's going to be interesting to see whether or not I can catch up. Nitro, crucially, is out of the slipstream at this point in the race here, over 9 tenths behind. You can see how quickly I'm catching this Porsche. It's not supersonic speeds, but it's fairly quick. Alfa Romeo pulls out and gives me a small toe as I go for the move down the inside of the Porsche, kind of assists me in getting that move done. I don't know whether that was deliberate or whether that was just the Alfa Romeo trying to simply break the toe. But that's now put a car in between myself and Nitro, so that's thrown a little bit of a spanner in this race here. It's going to be cool to see whether or not Nitro can kind of remain on the pace. Even if he catches up to the Porsche, he's going to have to overtake quite quickly, so that's what we can keep an eye on in the replay cam in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. But at this point in time, I just have that Porsche very close behind. He's firmly in the radar, but coming through the hairpin of lap 10, he just goes out of the radar, out of sight of the radar there, but he's still going to be in slipstream as we head down towards the chicane once again. Under braking, he just comes into the radar again, catches up quite a bit of ground. The gap it almost went below 4 tenths, but then it opened up to over 6 tenths, so he must have gone slightly deep into that heavy braking zone, and that has compromised his run through the chicane at the start of the 3rd sector. And you can see how quickly he's dropped off there. And casting our eyes down to the replay cam now, Nitro is now up to the back of the Porsche. He goes for the move at the final corner, keeping it nice and tight, braking sort of a little bit stronger with a little bit more pressure than you typically would, and that is Nitro up into 4th position, myself in 3rd, and he's still not in that slipstream just yet, so he's going to have to, really buckle down, really get his head down and focus on getting back into my slipstream, and then he'll be back in contention for a podium position at this point. Myself included in that, actually, so I'm trying to get onto the back of this Alfa Romeo as, if up into 2nd position would be quite nice, but I actually messed up turn 1, unfortunately, get a little bit wide onto the curb, touch a little bit the AstroTurf, get a portion of oversteer, and that just ruins my momentum down the straight towards turn 3, and that puts me quite far off the back of the Alfa Romeo ahead, and unfortunately that has just put me back within slipstream range of Nitro, so Nitro is now going to be picking up a nice toe down this straight, which kind of, disadvantages me, because the one advantage I have, straight line speed, is now not really an advantage now that the car has my slipstream and can keep up with me. So now I'm simply just pour through the corners, and that's the only sort of difference between myself and Nitro in terms of the car choice. Here I run a little bit wide out onto that AstroTurf as we're cutting turn 12, extremely wide through turn 13. That just puts Nitro more close, ever closer to me rather, once again if I can use grammar correctly. Heading through turn 15, A little bit of oversteer by Nitro, and he just drops off the bottom of the radar, but we managed to take a nice line through the final corner, actually get the power down nicely, not too much oversteer there, and you can see the gap is opening up a little bit, but it will soon begin to decrease as Nitro follows me in my slipstream here. There we go, beginning to decrease now. It just equalised at about 3.5 tenths, but he's now going to be in my slipstream, heading into the braking zone. We are going to have to be careful, as we know I have to brake early, so hopefully he doesn't run into the back of me, but no, he doesn't do that at that point. Nitro, quite a skilled driver, so I think he is privy to making sure, privy to the fact that you need to brake early under slipstream, but you can see we have dropped off the Alfa Romeo at this point. I think the best we can get is perhaps 3rd position, which is still a very good result. Podium position in second split is a very solid result for me here. Coming into the hairpin, once again, Nitro very close behind. He's just trying to set up a move on me, having maybe, he's maybe struggling a little bit to get me into where he wants me to be in order for him to dive down the inside of one of these corners here. Sharp, heavy braking zones into the turn 1, into turn 6 and turn 10. The final sector, you can get a move done up the inside of either Nets, which is the turn 14-15 complex, or up the inside of Panasonic, the final corner. You can also get moves up there, so Fuji quite good for overtaking, actually, in fairness to it. Nitro dives up the inside at one of those said corners there, but it translates to the outside for the final corner, so we're going to have to try and just remain defensive. He's very, very close behind me there, pretty much on my back bumper at that point there. He's going to be firmly in my slipstream. Heading down the straight, this could potentially be close enough for him to try an outbraking manoeuvre into turn 1, down the inside. Let's have a look as he gets a little bit closer. Does he remain behind? He does not. He pulls out for the move, but unfortunately just runs out of steam in that Mercedes as the McLaren reaches its top speed of nearly 280 kilometers an hour. Absolutely rapid down that straight there, and we managed to defend that position successfully. So I was wary to holding Nitro up at this point. Perhaps he was on a different kind of charge, maybe for a better position than fighting for 3rd. He could perhaps have gone up and got 2nd. So I was kind of aware that I could have been holding him up, but I wanted to have a race, basically. Not that I was doing it on purpose, but I wasn't really going to let him go, in this race here, especially because I'm essentially comparing how either of us perform on the same tyre set. So at the start of the stint, I feel like I was stronger in the McLaren, but as the tyre wear kicks in, the McLaren begins to struggle, and therefore that Mercedes gets ever closer. A couple of mistakes by me as well, running quite wide through turn 13 on the previous 2 laps, has just put Nitro very, very close within slipstream range. You can see us selecting 2nd gear through turn 13 now, so that just goes to show that I'm losing that grip. McLaren, as it is, doesn't have as much downforce as the modern Group 3 cars, so it really shows how tyres are so important here. But if I can keep Nitro behind before the 2nd pit stop here, it will be helpful to us in trying to remain ahead of Nitro for the remainder of the race. So we're going on to lap 14. This is the final lap on our 2nd stint here. So we've been in for 1 stop. We're going in for a 2nd stop at the end of this lap. The both of us are going to go in, as this is our 7th lap each on our soft tyres. You don't really want to go for any more than 7 laps. Or myself, I felt like I couldn't drive for more than 7 laps on soft tyres, so that's why we selected the strategy we did. Heading through turn 3, you can see Nitro just dropping off a little bit there. The gap just opening up to nearly 4 tenths, but we are very, very narrow for 100R turns 4 and 5. Don't ask me why it's counted as 2 corners. It just is, apparently, from the sources I have read. So yeah, that's why 100R is 2 corners, basically. But heading in down towards the chicane for the final time in this stint, Nitro is going to be in my slipstream, the gap remaining fairly steady at 3.5 tenths, once again catching a lot of ground under braking, but I trail the brake into the corner. He's not able to get any momentum for up the inside. There, through the final sector, we remember how sketchy this was in the previous stint. You can see how close Nitro is behind. He does have the grip advantage at this point here. The McLaren F1 has dropped off majorly at the end of the stint here. You can see heading through the turn 15, we get a massive kick of oversteer off the curb again in a similar fashion to what happened in the first stint there. But heading out onto the straight, out of the final corner, we put on the right indicator to signify we are going into the pits there. Let's see if we can get the pit entry correct this time, as hitting that barrier can get yourself a penalty on pit exit, so you do have to be careful. This is where the strategy changed. I went for a third stint on soft tyres, so I knew Nitro was going on to mediums, so he's going to be going for 2 laps on medium. I'm going to go for another 7-lap stint on soft tyres. That means at the end of the race, Nitro's going to be on soft tyres when I'm going to be on my medium tyre stint. So I decided to split the strategy, so Nitro was able to remain very, very close behind me for the duration of that stint, but was not able to overtake. So I thought I'd split the strategy up between us, put us out of track position, and, you know, try and win the race away from Nitro, if that makes sense. So if I can, you know, get away from Nitro in terms of strategy, and he can get stuck in a battle while I'm in clear air, I'm going to be getting that, you know, I'm going to get that overcut, or, yeah, I suppose that's what you call it, that sort of, the overtake in the pit lane, if that makes sense. But through this stint, it was kind of mainly on my own, but then the third lap on this stint, actually, we meet GT Sport Penalty coming out of the pit lane. So he's in the Jaguar. That's actually, the Jaguar is quite a strong car in a straight line. Not quite as quick as the McLaren, but the McLaren can struggle to overtake. We just tagged the back of him heading out of turn 3. We saw what happened with the Renault in the qualifying session. We don't want to be tagging the back of cars heading, you know, on the exit of corners. That could quite quickly get yourself a penalty, but we meet that apex lovely, or nicely would be the correct word there. Looking around the outside of the Hello Kitty liveried Jaguar F-Type driven by GT Sport Penalty, heading in towards the chicane. He runs defensive. A smart thing to do there, as the McLaren could have quite easily got alongside him, heading through here, heading through the very awkward chicane, up into the fast-flowing, or I guess slow-flowing final sector here. Tag the back of him again. Do we get another SR down? We do. No penalty, thankfully, so that is very, very borderline. You can see we almost tag the back of him again, and we just have to brake right on the apex there. You can see we're switching to the left, switching to the right, almost run into the back of him again. He keeps it narrow, heading down the straight, or heading through the final corner, and we're finally heading down the straight. We're going to get into the slipstream of that Jaguar. He's swerving left, swerving right, trying to break the toe. He swerves over to the pit lane again. I thought he might have been going in for a pit stop, but he doesn't. You can see he runs very close. The gap's there. I go for the inside. He just reacts to me, and I just touch the back of him again. Not quite able to get up the inside there, and I switch to the left, switch to the racing line, and to see he gets a 1-second penalty for that. That was obviously not intentional. You know, I was just trying to race the guy. I didn't want to give him a penalty. But unfortunately, that's what's happened here. And then coming into turn 3, he kind of edges over, just in the braking zone for turn 3, and I just graze 1 pixel of a tyre onto the grass, and it just drags me a little bit wide. I wasn't very happy. I think I flashed him a couple of times, but I suppose that's his way of saying, thanks for that penalty, idiot. GT Sport Penalty with a penalty. Quite ironic occurrences there, but that kind of ruined the race between us. Which is unfortunate. I didn't want that to happen. I just wanted to go up the inside, straight along the pit wall, Super GT style. For those of you that know that, basically, if you know, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that was very unfortunate that he got that penalty there. It was unintentional, and really it just goes to show how silly the penalty system is at the moment. He kind of, I suppose you could say he blocked me, but because he reacted to me moving to the inside for that gap, but I don't think it was malicious in that I'm going to block every move you do. I don't think it was quite like that. It was like him trying to say, what are you doing? That's a silly thing to do, or maybe it was. But if we could have pulled it off, it would have looked like an absolute god. But there he goes, serving that penalty. Flash of the hazards to say, I'm sorry for that, but he does fall behind me, out of slipstream range at that point there. So we're now on our own, 5.1 seconds behind Kazadra and 2 seconds ahead of GT Sport Penalty. But we skip ahead, end of lap 21, 3 times 7 is 21, so that means we've done three lots of 7 laps on soft tyres, therefore it's the 7th lap on my 3rd stint of softs, therefore we're going into the pit lane. We can see Nitro's replay angle there. He's done his pit stops already. He's now on the soft tyre for his final 7 laps of the race. So we leave his replay angle on as he heads past the pit lane as we come to pit exit. It's going to be very, very close. We're going to switch over actually and have a look at Nitro here for the next couple of laps. There I am, exiting the pit lane, a little bit wide through turn 1, but we managed to ward off the move from Nitro, or the BMW, driven by Rosmo, I think it is. So that's quite interesting, the fact that we came out ahead. So we had that battle with GT Sport penalty, so I think Nitro may have been caught in a longer battle. The GT Sport penalty battle kind of only lasted a lap, but I think Nitro must have been caught up in a battle for a good couple of laps. He also had 2 pit stops very close to one another, so that would have put him quite far back in the pack in terms of track position. So it's interesting to see. Nitro also refueled on 2 of his stops. So after he went in for the medium tyres, I think he refueled slightly to get just to do his medium stint, and then he refilled all the way on his second stop. That actually loses you 3 seconds overall in terms of, compared to someone that only refills once. The animation for refueling in itself loses you 3 seconds. So if you refill twice, you lose 3 seconds on each sort of portion of refueling, whereas if you refuel once, you only lose the 3 seconds once. That's a tip that Tijni often talks about, so another YouTube content creator that I like to watch. So I did let Nitro know, and I think that was a good thing for him to know, as I think potentially if he refueled in one chunk, he probably could have got out of the pits ahead of me, and that would have been very, very interesting in terms of the race. But you can see we go into the final lap now. Nitro has not been able to overtake me, so his soft tyres are quite old at this point. They were 6 laps old when I came out of the pit. Lane, or 5 to 6 laps old when I exited the pit lane, whereas I'm on brand new medium tyres, so our grip levels would be fairly similar at this point. So brand new mediums versus 6 lap old softs, you're going to have fairly similar grip, and I think that's what we're seeing here. Is you can see the gap between myself and Nitro here is remaining fairly constant as we head through here through 100R there. Of course, we cannot actually see the gaps on the main screen. You might be able to just see them in the little replay, or my point of view in the bottom left currently. But, I'm not driving into the distance, but Nitro also isn't crawling up to the back of me. He's also got Rosmo very, very close behind. You might just be able to see him nudging Nitro just in the bottom of the picture there. So it just goes to show that, Rosmo could have potentially got past if the situation arose. But heading through the final sector, we're coming up to the end of the race. I think we're going to be able to hold on to this position here. Nitro gets a little bit of oversteer off the curb there, but you can see me flash back to myself. Exiting the final corner, it's going to be a sensational 4th position. So after starting 5th, in a fairly good effort there, we made up 1 position. We had an absolutely excellent race with Nitro. Absolute shout out to that. He's actually got a YouTube channel as well, and he streams FIA. I don't stream, but I make videos, but he streams it, so I'll link his channel down below. GT Sport penalty also finished ahead of me in the end, even with the penalty that I kind of gave him. So, I think he was faster than me in that race, so fair play for finishing ahead. Also, I do apologise for the penalty, but I don't really feel like it should have been one anyway. But there we go, 4th position, up 1 position. 196 points, fastest driver for McLaren, fairly good. Also, Fuji, after this race, I think I like it a little bit more than I did before the race. Fuji, I used to not really like at all, but after that race, I've kind of learnt to like it. It's a good circuit, especially when you get it right, because the final sector, when you get right, so satisfying. But I do hope you enjoyed. Once again, Nitro, thank you very much for that race. I had an absolutely amazing time trying to hold you at bay. Managed to do so in the end, so I'm happy about that, but I do hope to meet you out on track again. Do hit that like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. Also leave a comment, questions, comments, constructive criticism, always very much appreciated. But that's going to be the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.